Sentire Media.
Well, hello, my friends, and welcome back to a new episode of A New Life in Italy. I'm Samantha Wilson, and today we're diving into a hot topic that's reshaping the way that we think about work and travel, and that's the digital nomad lifestyle. Now, I know I've already done an episode not too long ago on the Digital Nomad Visa when it first came out in April. But today I want to give you an update because we've been knee-deep in the trenches on this visa, working on multiple applications from many different countries, and there's news to share. If you didn't know, we put a call out to our listeners and our community when this visa first was announced. We were asking people to submit their application to be selected as one of our 4 visa applicants that our team was going to help free of charge. Well, after hundreds of applicants, actually hundreds and hundreds, we selected 4, and they're from Canada, the US, and the UK. But we've also been working on applications in different countries, most specifically Croatia, because some third country nationals who first started as digital nomads in Croatia are now wanting to switch over to the Italian one. But it's not so easy because although the digital nomad visa is aimed at attracting remote workers from around the world, Italy is not like other countries. And we're learning more about the process and the real requirements, not just the ones on paper, but a lot more. In today's episode, I am going to talk about 3 very specific developments that will impact you if you plan to apply for this visa. Now, whether you're a freelancer, an entrepreneur, or just someone with a case of wanderlust and a laptop, understanding these nuances can help you decide if this lifestyle and Italy is right for you. So grab your espresso or your glass of vino, and let's unpack the essentials of becoming a digital nomad in Italy. I'm Samantha Wilson, Chief Dreammaker at smartmoveitaly.com, and this is A New Life in Italy, a show where each week I take you behind the scenes of what it's really like to move to Italy, introduce you to some fascinating people, answer your questions, and show you how starting a new life in Bel Paese is possible for you. Well, okay, my friends, let's get you up to date on the new visa that has become so important for so many people. There is still a ton of buzz around the digital nomad visa in Italy. And as I mentioned, we are working on a lot of these applications in a number of different consulates and countries. And as expected, the requirements, the eligibility, and the process varies. What we're learning as we move through these applications and we put them through the process. Oh, by the way, if you're wondering how many DNVs have been issued so far, nada, none, nil, nothing. So we're still in the uncharted territory because nobody has one yet. There have been 3 significant updates that I want to share with you in hopes to help you decide if you qualify and if you want to DIY the whole process. So the first one is to remember that this visa is the baby of the EU Blue Card and the self-employment visa. If we put those 2 together, what they had together was the digital nomad visa. The most weight on this visa falls on being highly skilled. So this is what's different from other visas in other countries. Often you just needed to be working remotely for a period of time and make a certain amount of money. In Italy, you need to be highly skilled. In the past, the EU Blue Card, which was the daddy of this visa, was also available for highly skilled people or for those with professional licenses. But until a few years ago, simple work experience just wasn't good enough. But that did change, and the Blue Card now has this little provision for professional experience. Now, keeping that in mind, this same criteria, in fact, almost word for word, is now inside the digital nomad visa, which would lead us to believe that if you do not have a degree or a license, but lots of experience, then you should be eligible. But not so fast, because the consulates have a ton of discretion. And like the Blue Card, although the professional experience is written into the eligibility criteria, in practice, it's really not catching on. In fact, it's critical that to succeed that you have a degree or a license. And because the best predictor of the future is the past, And with our experience with the consulate's discretionary habits, it's our opinion that simply having professional experience is just not enough, and it's not going to get this visa over the line for you. Now, that's not to say that some consulates may accept your professional experience because, well, this is Italy, but it's highly unlikely. So for those of you who are planning to just sell up and apply for the DNV, but do not have a degree or a license, tread very carefully, my friends, and make sure you have a plan B. The next significant thing for the degree holders and license holders that is fleshed out recently is the requirement for a CIMIA for your degree and or the QNQ, which is the Quadro Nazionale della Qualificazione, or in English it's called the EQF, the European Qualification Framework. So what the hell am I talking about? I know you're thinking it. Well, the CIMIA is a process where you have to verify your degree and show its equivalence in Europe and Italy. Often we use the CIMIA for people who are coming over for their master's, for example. So to show what the degree they have now in order to qualify, they go through this equivalency through the CIMIA. It's an online database and an application system that will review your degree, your transcripts, and your school history, and then give you this equivalence that you will need to apply for the visa. And we're using it now on the DNV as well. It'll cost you about $150 and can take a few months to get a response, so plan ahead. Now, the QNQ is a European framework that assigns points towards your license. So for those of you who don't have a degree, but you have a professional license, this one's for you. It's designed to help understand the types and the levels of qualifications from other countries. And it helps clarify what a person knows and understands and really is able to do. So if you have a license to practice your remote work, for example, you're an online therapist, then you will need to get a score from the QNQ before you apply. And then, of course, you need to have your degrees and your licenses apostille and translated. So it isn't just a matter of saying, yeah, I have a degree, here you go. There's a lot more to it. And for some of you who may have graduated a long time ago, now's the time to dig up that degree and order your old transcripts. You might even need to order your degree again, because some people lose these things. You're going to need them. Now, the third thing I want to mention is the taxes. Yes, I can tell your ears just all perked up because it's a big question. When you arrive in Italy on the Digital Nomad Visa, you have 8 days to apply for your permesso di soggiorno. Now, when you head over to the Questura to get your fingerprints and your photographs, you will also be required to open a partita IVA, or a small Italian business. Now, there's a few different kinds of businesses that are attached to tax regimes that you can choose from. For example, like the regime forfeiture, which is a flat 5% tax, and you can't make more than $85,000 a year, or the regime impatriati, which has just been changed to 50% of your income being tax-free. But there are a lot of restrictions and requirements for both of those regimes, which we're going to cover in a future episode. For now, I just need you to understand 3 very important things about it. Number 1, when you move to Italy on a digital nomad visa, you must open an Italian partita IVA, an Italian business, and pay tax on the income that you earn while you're here. Number 2, if you stay long enough, longer than half of the year, and or register as a resident to get all those juicy benefits like healthcare and buying a car, etc., then you will also be moving your taxable residence to Italy. This means that you have to disclose your worldwide income and assets to the Italian tax authorities and potentially pay tax. And finally, if you want to renew your digital nomad visa after the first year, because remember, it's only good for 12 months, renewable, you will need to have a valid business, so a valid partita IVA. So if you're thinking, no, I'm not getting into any of that stuff, I'm just going to stay super quiet and go about my business and not bother anyone, think again, because you will not be able to stay beyond the first year because you won't be able to prove that you have a partita IVA. And if you've been here and you haven't declared your income to the tax office and they learn about it, you're in for a world of trouble, my friends. So it's not worth it. Taxes are complicated and deserve an entire episode. They really do, which I'm going to be doing later on. But for this episode, I want you to just have clarity on these new developments. So to recap, number one, you need to have a degree or license, full stop. Number two, you need to put your degree or license through the qualification processes, like the CHIMIA or the QNQ. This could be complex, so you might need some help. And number three, you need to open your own Italian company and pay tax in Italy on your earnings as a digital nomad visa, and potentially also earnings on your worldwide assets and anything you make somewhere else. And that's only if you stay for half of the year or become a resident. These are all significant updates that I wanted to share. And as we continue down the digital nomad visa path, I promise I'll keep you informed. But that wasn't all I wanted to talk to you about today. I was thinking that about the digital nomad visa and why is it so popular? And why do so many people want to be nomadic or digital nomads? Italy isn't the only country that has this visa, and more people are jumping on. So I asked a friend and a professional nomad, Kristen Wilson, from Traveling with Kristen, to share some of her thoughts on being a digital nomad and giving some real world insights about the ups and the downs of this particular lifestyle. Well, hello, Kristen. Nice to speak to you again, and thanks for coming to the show. Okay, well, Kristen, so nice to talk to you again. I am really excited because, as you know, the Italian government has finally approved the digital nomad visa for Italy. It is one of those visas that we have been waiting for I think for a couple of years. They've been teasing us. And finally, it came out in April, the beginning of April. So it's still super new. And because we're having so many new people coming in and so many, it's opening the doors for a lot of other people that don't just have to have this, big bank account to get here. I wanted to talk to you about life as a digital nomad because you've been one for how long?
I was just trying to figure that out yesterday. I think it's been about 15 years of my life that I've been nomadic.
And you like the word nomadic, I guess.
Well, yes. As a digital nomad, I found that you can go through seasons of being fully nomadic, semi-nomadic, settling in different places. And that's what I really like about the lifestyle is the flexibility. So in my younger years, I would travel the world on a one-way plane ticket, no end date in sight, and just kind of go where the wind took me and spend a week here, a few days there, a month there, and, travel very quickly. But then depending on, the type of life phase or season that you're in, you might crave something where you want to stay longer. It's 3 months, 6 months, 1 year in a different place, or even sometimes come back to your home country to reset and then go travel again. So I first started working remotely in 2008, and I was living in Costa Rica, but I was working in Nicaragua. So that was my first experience being a digital nomad because I was traveling and working remotely in a place that I didn't live, or that I wasn't working in the country that I was traveling in. And this is a very common requirement for digital nomad visas, that you're earning an income outside of the country that you're visiting or that you're living in. And so, that was my first time doing it, although I have gone back a couple of times to the US to live for a few months. But in general, since 2008, since before I knew what a digital nomad was, I've been a digital nomad.
I was going to say you broke the mold probably, or you started it at the beginning because, I think, technology and maybe COVID has helped springboard this whole concept of being able to live in different places around the world and still work and still make money.
Mm-hmm.
But
that's why I think we're all, digital nomads were so excited when the first digital nomad visas came out, because it was a way to stay longer in countries that sometimes you can only stay for 30 days or 90 days. Or in the case of Europe, of course, with the Schengen zone, 90 days throughout all of those countries combined before you have to leave for 90 days if you don't have residency or a different type of work permit or long-term permit. So not all of the digital nomad visas have been very practical and easy to apply for, but the Italy digital nomad visa looks a lot more flexible. And I also like that it is a path to long-term residency, which the other ones don't offer. So it's really interesting. And I was thinking, maybe I could try it out as well, or definitely recommend it to some of my relocation clients.
Right. Well, it is. I mean, it is flex. It's Italy, so there's
Right.
it's not always straightforward, but the nice thing about this visa is exactly what you said. And that's different from other ones, is that you can bank your time towards your EU long-term permit. So after 5 years of being in here on a digital nomad visa, you can get that long-term 10-year permit. And some people, I think, maybe you can clarify this for me, because you work with a lot of people wanting to do this, all over the world to live this lifestyle. So do most people really want to stay somewhere for a long period of time, or is the idea of being nomadic really entrenched and they want to be able to continue to move on to the next shiny object?
My personal opinion is that when people start out, they have a lot of energy and enthusiasm for the digital nomad lifestyle and wanting to travel as fast, as far, as long, as much as possible. But ultimately, the concept of traveling at a fast pace full time while working full time and really making the most of your time in each place. This means going sightseeing, meeting people, finding community, but also being productive and getting work done. I think it's a big ask of any human being. And I think that there is a shelf life of this pace of travel. I mean, I personally, I've done it for years, but we're humans. We need to rest. We need to recover. We need to take breaks, and we need to have consistency, routine, and normalcy at some point. And when you think of the typical 9 to 5 traditional lifestyle, or even pre-industrial times, people working in agriculture, farming, everyone stayed in the same place to work and had very consistent routines. Whereas before that, when people were more nomadic, they were nomadic for a specific reason, usually of trying to find food, shelter, safety, and people were traveling in tribes, in packs. They were basically traveling with their community. What we're doing now is incredible because we have more freedom than any human being has ever had in the history of humanity. We're able to get on a plane and be on the other side of the world in a matter of hours, and we can make money from anywhere. So it's such a fun time to be alive. But at the same time, I think that ultimately it's an unnatural way to live forever, in my opinion. I think it's something that you can interchange with, okay, I'm going to travel for a while and then I'm going to settle for a while and then I'm going to travel again, or even settle and take, there might be people who work remotely and work from home and they want to keep their homes, but they want to be able to travel intermittently throughout the year. I think the idea of like a digital backpacker who roams the world forever and never stays anywhere, I think that has like a limited time, like lifespan on it. And there are nomads out there who will say, I will do this forever, but maybe they've only been doing it for 5 years. And I'm like, okay, well, come back 10 years from now or 8 years from now or 20 years from now and tell me if you're still going to a different place every week or every month. I think ultimately you'll meet somebody that you connect with and you want to stay with, or you come across a country that you can see yourself living in at least a few months a year. And so now we have people that have 3 or 4 home bases around the world that they rotate between. So I think there's going to be an evolution of the nomadic lifestyle to where it's whatever you want it to be for you. and not necessarily like the media's portrayal of it, which is just, someone who doesn't own anything
Yeah.
and they just travel with a backpack for the rest of their lives,
Right.
or a
Well,
carry-on.
yeah. Well, I think Instagram is, I guess responsible for that messaging or that image that it's providing. But I have a question for you, just based on what you were saying. When you said that some nomads, digital nomads have these communities all over the world, how do you do that? I know that we have a lot of people that we help come over here. One of their biggest fears or worries is that they'll be lonely and that they won't meet people. What has been your experience when you've transplanted to a new country?
Yes, I actually just did a video on that a few weeks ago on loneliness as a digital nomad for my Traveling with Kristen channel. And, people in the comments were like, thank you for making this video because it's a great question. People don't talk about it enough, or the downsides of it. And at first, I found that I was less lonely while traveling because you have so many more opportunities to meet people compared to, let's say, if you grew up in your hometown and then got a job there and kind of stayed in the same area, you would have a strong community because you would know a lot of people, but you might not go outside of your routine or your comfort zone to meet new people all the time. Whereas when you're traveling and you're in new places, you're vulnerable in a way, like in a good way, because that's why we travel. We want to be out of our comfort zones. We want to see new things. We want to meet new people. And so it can be easier to meet people that way through, sometimes it could be organically through your normal lifestyle there, but it really helps if you sign up for meetups, or let's say you join a Facebook group and they're having in-person meetups, or you go on a website like Internations and become a member, pay a few dollars per month, and then you can access their events, or you can go on meetup.com. And what I found is that it only takes meeting one person to really change your entire experience in that country. And all of a sudden you have access to that entire social circle and friend group. Like I met a girl once. She was the wife of one of my relocation clients, and they were living in the Netherlands. And I met her, I think it was in 2013. And now they live in the Dominican Republic. But because I met her there in the Netherlands and I met her friends, she invited me to like a house party, a dinner. I then became friends with her friends. And now every time I go back to the Netherlands, I meet up with the same people. I go to their weddings. It's like this whole friend circle that I have that I wouldn't have had if I hadn't have met her. So you need to get out there and try to meet people. But then once you do, you get that momentum.
I think that's a really good point. And also this concept of, the world is small. I think when you start traveling around, which is probably something you've come to realize or experience. And when you meet people from other countries, this is, I think, one of the bonuses of being nomadic, or even uprooting yourself from where you are and taking a chance and perhaps coming to Italy on a digital nomad visa. You're not just hanging around the people that you know or in the environment that you feel safe and comfortable. You're pushing yourself a little bit to try new things or just be a little bit uncomfortable, and meet people from other countries, which is only going to help you grow. So I don't know. I mean, I guess my question to you is, what's the downside to it? You've done it long enough. What would you say the downside is?
I would say the biggest downside is probably if you're looking for a long-term relationship. I think that's been the hardest thing for me, because when you're traveling nomadically, you can meet local people that have their local lives. So it might take some time, as you know, to get to know the locals. You typically need to know the local language. And then, just because you're a traveler or a foreigner in their country, like they've been living there their whole lives. So it's going to be a bit of a different type of relationship or interaction there. Then if you meet so let's say if you meet a local that you fall in love with and then you don't have a visa and you can't stay, then that can be a complication there, and they probably don't want to leave. So then if you meet another traveler, you might be going in separate directions. I mean, that literally happened to me once. I met somebody on a bus from Croatia to Bosnia, and he had just finished a year long or 2 year long sabbatical. He was from the UK. And had I met him at the beginning of his sabbatical, things would have been different, but he was on his way back home. So, we never saw each other again because he was literally leaving after we were in the same place for a few days. So you could meet other travelers and you're just going your separate ways and, never see them again. Or, if you meet other nomads, then it can be very serious very fast, because in order to see where the relationship goes, it's not like a normal relationship where you go out to the movies or you go out to dinner and you get to know each other slowly. It's like you have to decide. You have maybe a week or so, or maybe a month if you're lucky, of casual dating before you need to decide if you want to see each other again. Do you start traveling together? Do you, all of a sudden you're moving in together? And yeah, so I think that's been the hardest thing for me. Currently, I'm in a long-term or a long-distance relationship with someone who lives in Europe, but we haven't seen each other in more than 6 months. So it's really difficult. So yeah, I don't have the solution for that one yet, but for me and many nomads, the freedom of travel, at least in the short to medium term, has outweighed that. And I've also known many nomads who have met at events like Nomad Cruise or Nomad Base, or events for world travelers and nomads that have met and fallen in love, gotten married, had kids. And now there's also a lot of families that travel nomadically and homeschool or world school. So it is possible. I think that's just a bigger challenge compared to if you live in one city.
Yeah, I think it's a really good point that you say goodbye a lot.
Yeah.
A lot of goodbyes, for sure. And I think your point of families moving abroad and bringing their kids with them and, putting them in these world schools, which are really quite an interesting concept as well. I think there's so many opportunities now. I loved at the very beginning when you said we're really lucky to be living in this time, to have this freedom that we have and the choices that people have now. And I'm thrilled that now people can come here because, in my opinion, Italy is one of the, most beautiful countries in the world. It's complicated, but, nothing worthwhile is without challenge. So, and it'll challenge you for sure. But I think the whole lifestyle, the whole starting and settling in and finding the permissions to get in and go through that settling in stage, no matter where you are, you have to bear with it and just do it.
Right. And these other challenges of being a nomad, these are like long-term challenges. They're not something that most people will be very concerned with when they first experiment with the lifestyle, or even for the first few years. It can be, I've been doing it for 15 years. So there are things that come up over the long term. Also, having a place to call home is important at some point. Many people feel like they don't have any roots anywhere because they've just been traveling for many years. And so what I found is that it's helpful to have a base to come back to. If you have enough disposable income to be able to buy property in Italy or in another country that you really love and could see yourself spending some time there each year. It's like little things like that. Like I had a home base in Miami during the pandemic, and then got really used to having, my own furniture, my own kitchenware, my own pillow, bed, like my own stuff. And when I went traveling again the past couple of years, putting everything in storage and, not having, if you're an artist or a musician, it's really hard to carry equipment with you or instruments with you. So there's certain things that way that can complicate the lifestyle, but I have kind of found this balance between settling and traveling. And I know when it's a period where I want to stay in one place for 6 months or 8 months, and then I feel like traveling again for a few months, and then I settle somewhere else or go back to a place that I've been to before. Like I go back to Amsterdam usually once a year. I have family in Florida, so I like to come and visit them. And as we were saying right before we started recording, I just got back from visiting my sister who had a new baby, and she is a lawyer. She has a traditional job. She doesn't travel that much. She doesn't have many vacation days per year. So also another thing people can consider if they are location independent is being able to spend more time with family than you would if you were in a 9 to 5 job. So that can mean going to visit where they live, or it can mean traveling with them. How fun would it be to be on a digital nomad visa in Italy and your family members and friends get to come visit you there? You have this whole other experience and memory that you can create together.
Exactly. And believe me, you'll have a lot more friends than you thought you did. If all of a sudden you're living in Italy, all of a sudden they come out, oh, hey, do you remember me? I'm coming to visit. Which is kind of a nice thing, of course, but I guess that helps bring a little bit of home back and reground you, I guess, after some time. So the most important thing to know, what would you tell somebody the most important thing that they should know or do really before moving abroad?
Yes, the most important thing, and this goes for nomads as well as expats or people that are thinking of moving to another country temporarily or even permanently immigrating to another country. I get a lot of email inquiries where people are trying to find a remote job or create a form of remote income, like a remote income stream or online business at the same time that they are thinking of transitioning into a digital nomad lifestyle or moving to another country. And it's like, what came first, the chicken or the egg? I definitely recommend to everybody to have your income consistent and proven before attempting to live like a digital nomad or immigrate to another country and get permanent residency somewhere, unless you think that you can find a job there. So there might be somebody going from Canada to Panama and they haven't been there before. And they're like, well, could I find a job in Panama or can I find a remote job? And I explained to them, okay, the minimum wage in Panama is much lower than Canada. So even if you do get a work permit and get a local job, like you might be making $800 per month, and it's a different lifestyle than you're used to. Or it can take 6 months to a year to find a remote salary job, or it can take a few months or a year or even a few years to do a startup or an online business that is profitable, So I recommend to people to start their side hustle or their job search and get that out of the way before they move, unless they're moving to another country with a company sponsor where they're going to be working there on a traditional work permit. So I think a lot of times people see this opportunity and then they want to change everything at once. But the one thing that all of my relocation clients, all of my digital nomad clients, everyone has had in common is that they had some form of reliable income before they started traveling, whether they were retirees or remote workers or freelancers. And so that's definitely very
Really
important.
Good. Yeah, really. I think the number one thing for sure. And we hear it all the time as well. Can I get a job there? If I move there, I'll just, I've always wanted to start a YouTube channel. I'll just do that because Italy's so beautiful. And you're right. You have to have at least something stable and reliable because everything else is going to be different. So it's nice to have something that you can count on while you're getting used to the change.
And you want to be able to enjoy where you are and not spend 80 hours a week working from your computer because you're trying to make ends meet so you don't run out of money. It's like if you want to take a sabbatical and go travel on your savings, you don't have to worry about working. But when you're thinking of working part-time or full-time and then traveling at the same time, it's a lot. Unless you're a roving retiree and you're living on your pension and you can just travel and enjoy.
Yeah, that's right. Well, this is great advice. I mean, obviously, you know what you're talking about with all your experience. So tell everybody where they can find you.
Sure. So I have a weekly podcast that's called Badass Digital Nomads, where I interview other location independent and unconventional people around the world. We have close to 300 episodes now. So it's been going since 2019. And I also publish weekly on my YouTube channel, Traveling with Kristen, that you can just search that on YouTube. And if people want to get in touch with me for support for moving to another country. I have a program called Ready to Relocate that gets you ready to move overseas in 2 to 3 months. So this is for if you want to go to Costa Rica or Portugal or Spain or any country in the world. But it doesn't do what you do with Italy with the residency paperwork and everything. So you can find that at travelingwithkristen.com/relocation.
Perfect. Okay, well, we're going to put all of those links inside the show notes so people can find them there as well. Thank you so much again. It's so nice to chat with you again and with our common last names. It's always fun.
Yes, and congrats on all of I love your new YouTube videos. I've been watching the Italy videos and definitely hope to get back over there in the near future. So I'll let you know.
Yes, for sure. We'll have to go out for a few cocktails.
Yeah, Italy was the first place I ever traveled at 17 years old, ever abroad. That was my first overseas trip. It was my graduation trip with my mom, and my grandmother paid for it because her family was from Italy, from Sicily, and that was her gift to me. And it's always been a special place. I went there in the year 2000, and then I went back for my birthday 20 years later, and it was great. We went to the Amalfi Coast and Positano. And so the first time I did Rome to Naples, or Rome to Tuscany and around the northern part of the country. And then the next time I went down south to Naples and Positano. So it has always a very special place in my heart, as I'm about 25% Italian. So I have to keep going back there.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we're here when you're ready. And I hope to see you next time you're on our side.
Great.
All right, Kristen. Talk to you soon. Ciao, ciao.
Ciao.
It's time for listener questions. Just like the old radio call-in shows, my team has picked 3 listener questions, all left on our voicemail. I have no idea what these questions are, but I haven't been stumped yet. Are you ready? Let's get started.
Hi, Sam. My name is Heather. I had a question regarding the Golden Visa. How does that process work? And from my understanding, you invest in a startup in Italy. Is there some sort of list or email website that contains all of the small startup business that you invest in for the Golden Visa? Thank you.
Hello, Heather. And yes, the Italian investor visa, people are also calling it the Golden Visa. And they're also mistakenly calling it the startup visa. So that's a completely different visa. And I think where the confusion is that for the investment visa, you invest in an Italian innovative startup. So this is different. The investor visa is for people who want to move to Italy, maybe not live here full time, do not want to move their taxable residence to Italy, and can invest. They can work if they want. They can invest 2 levels. There's actually 4 levels, but the 2 levels that most people are interested in are the 500,000 euros into an Italian company, like buying shares in Enel Energy or Ferrari, something like that, or 250 into an Italian innovative startup, which is what you were asking about. Now, this is a very specific type of a company in Italy that has to meet certain criteria. And in order for you to invest in that company, you have to, again, invest 250,000, but that company can't be more than 5 years old, can't make more than 5 million euros, and must be innovative in some way. So who are these companies, or where do you find them? The government does have a list of these companies that are potentially viable for you to invest in. And the problem, though, is that the list on the government site, if you Google Investor Visa Italian startups, you will see a list, but it's very dated. So you have to still comb through them and do some legwork. I know that with all of the investor visas that we do, the 250 level, we have a whole team that, and a lawyer who works only in startups who actually helps with that process, because it can be hard to find those details, especially the details that you need to make an investment with clarity. Keeping in mind, investing in a startup here, even in Italy, like everywhere in the world, it's very high risk. but it's a pretty low level of entry to get in on the Italian investor visa and get all of the benefits that you get with that visa. It's a great visa. And there's another podcast that you can listen to I did on the investor visa. It's a little earlier on. Have a look at that, and I hope that helps.
Hello, Robert here. I was wondering about why I have to get a tax number. I believe they call it a codici fiscali before purchasing a home in Italy. If you could explain that, that'd be awesome. Thank you.
Oh, what a great question. It is a bit confusing, isn't it? Why you need to get your social security number or social insurance number, which is the equivalent to a codici fiscali in Italy. Why you need a tax number. Well, an Italian tax number is needed for if you move and live in Italy. It's needed to do pretty much everything because it's your identification here. And when you sign any contract, register any contract in Italy, you need to be identified. And the way we do that is with your codici fiscale. And this is a specific series of numbers based on your name and your date of birth and where you're from and all of these things. And it's required, absolutely required when you register a lease. Now, it depends on how it's registered. Register meaning through the tax office. So when you have a rental contract in Italy, the owner is obligated to register that lease to make sure it's valid, and you will need your codici fiscale to register that online. However, there's a little way you can get through it. You will still obviously always need a codici fiscale here, especially to open up utilities or do something with your rental. So it's not just needed for the lease. But if you're in a hurry, for example, and you can't get your codici fiscale, but you need your lease, I know we have some visa people in this situation, and you can't get it in time to get it registered, if your agent or the owner is willing to walk it into the tax office, the lease, and register it, they will register it without a codici fiscale in person at a tax office. Hope this helps.
Hi, my name's Barbara Orsi, and I'm trying to figure out, how to find a rental property in Italy that I could be in for maybe 3 to 5 months. I live in Oregon, United States. I'm retired. I'm on an IRA pension. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Hi, Barbara. Renting in Italy for short term, so under 12 months, can be a little bit challenging using any agency to do that, mostly because agencies work on commission that is equal to 1 year's, at least a percentage of the full year's rent, or even equal to 1 month's rent. So it can be a little bit difficult to find an agency for shorter terms. Although any lease in Italy over 1 month does require a written and registered lease, it's really probably easier for you if you wanted something long term. And I'm assuming that you have a visa or the ability, maybe you're a citizen, an Italian citizen or European, ability to come here for 7 months at a time. If that's the case, then I still suggest that you go through like Airbnb or VRBO or some sort of sabbaticalhomes.com, I think is a really good one, where you can find somebody else's property for a extended period of time, but not long enough that it would, pertain to a residential address. This is usually your best way. And just keep in mind of the seasons in Italy to get the best deal. Anything, from Easter to end of September is in season here. So if you're coming off season, you should be able to save a few dollars as well. Hope this helps. Well, that's all for this episode of A New Life in Italy. Remember, whether you're seeking to change your workspace or your work view, the digital nomad path might be the perfect gateway for your new life in Italy. And if you really are ready to get started on your DNV, head over to our website at smartmoveitaly.com/digitalnomad and find out the ways that we can help you get here. Ciao for now, and keep chasing your dreams wherever they may lead you. A New Life in Italy podcast is a production of Sentire Media, created and hosted by me, Samantha Wilson. Production by London Nero, and with special thanks to Ali Frothingham, Sophia Pisana, and the entire team at Sentire. Follow A New Life in Italy wherever you get your podcasts. And hey, if you're thinking of moving to Italy, whether full-time, part-time, or for a lifetime, come and see me over at smartmoveitaly.com and we'll help you get here and start living your best life. And don't forget, if you love this episode, please rate and leave a review. It's much appreciated. I can't wait to meet up with you again next week, same time, same place. Ciao for now.
Sentire Media.
Hey, podcast producers and show hosts. Do you want to join a podcast network that celebrates all things Italian? At Sentire Media, we understand the allure of Italy and its unique culture. Our devoted team of hosts and producers are all driven by their shared passion for Italy. And we work tirelessly to create the best lifestyle podcasts and content that will whisk you away to the very heart of Italy. With us, you can savor the mouth-watering flavors, get lost in the stories from the past, break down the cultural barriers, and truly immerse yourself in the vibrant traditions of this intoxicating country. If you have a great podcast idea or are already in production and would like to join Sentire Media, head over to sentiremedia.com, that's SENTIRE media.com, and find out how to submit your show.